Time for our second guest of the show and for the new season. It is football head coach Paul Peterson joining us on Zoom. Coach, how the heck are you? Can you hear us? Can we hear you? We're
I
still
got
trying to
you. Can
figure
you guys
out
hear
all
me?
this Zoom technology stuff. You'd think after 6 months we'd have it all done, we'd be experts, but I think we've got you here. Can you hear us?
Okay, you got me. Yeah, I can hear you guys if you can hear me.
Good, good. Well, how's it going, Coach? We appreciate you taking a couple minutes out of your time with us this afternoon. And how are things going down there at the stadium?
No, it's good, man. We're just waiting to see what's going to happen here in the springtime, and we've transitioned into workouts, kind of off-season workouts. Our guys are attacking the weight room right now. Just did a little testing with some squat and bench, and getting a little dirty in the weight room. And so, yeah, that's what we're doing.
What are you benching and squatting these days still?
I can do the bar, I think. I'm getting soft, man.
No, I'll ingest. Having some fun with you. He's head coach Paul Peterson, football head coach of the Dixie State Trailblazers. Coach, let's dive into this interview. And obviously, it's the elephant in the room. It's what we're going to talk about. The season being postponed. We haven't really chatted with you on this show since everything came down the wire. Let's talk about the events leading up to that postponement. It was the day before everything was announced. I was seeing rumors on Twitter that it was almost saying like, oh yeah, Dixie State's going to go up and play BYU this year, and it was getting traction in the northern Utah media, and then the very next day, the plug had been pulled and the season had been postponed. Take me through those couple of days from your vantage point and what led to ultimately them calling it for the fall season.
Yeah, it was frustrating. So we felt like we hung on as long as we can. Our games just kept getting postponed. Yeah, we were in contact with not only BYU but a few other FBS teams that were interested in playing. But once the Mountain West went down and then the Big Sky went down, we didn't have anybody else to play, and so we were in conversations with BYU. Just there was no contract or anything like that, but that would have been a fun opportunity for our kids. It's unfortunate because you prepare this whole year for this time, but a lot of things that were out of our control. There was a time at the end of July, I just wanted to scream, and be like, what are we doing? But I can't control it. And, that was the message to our players and just to control what they could and show up every day ready to participate. I'm really proud of them because there was a time where I had to say, look, you guys got to give me some time, because they saw when the conferences were going down, when the teams were canceling their seasons as well. And they hung with it and prepared the best they could. And then, when we finally made that decision, it was, okay, let's right away transition into development and get in this weight room for whenever they allow us to play again.
And you just mentioned, you just kind of answered this question a little bit, but how have they responded since then? You mentioned that they were hearing about other conferences going down, and then the decision was made here, and initially, I'm sure it was an initial shock factor, but how have they handled it? Have they bounced back? How are practices going?
Oh no, they've been awesome. Yeah, so right now, what the NCAA has allowed us to have 12 care hours. So we can have 5 out on the field for individual work, and we can't practice yet. We're waiting for them to tell us what we can do that way with the NCAA. So we've got them in the weight room for the rest of those hours, in the meeting room evened up. We're really focusing on our academics right now. We're getting our study hall going in our family groups and making sure we're staying on top of it academically. And so it's just a little bit. It's a weird time because usually we're getting ready to play this Saturday, and you kind of get in a routine and a rhythm who the next team you play. So that's a little bit new, but we bought some time for us to develop, and that's what we're focusing on.
Coach, let's shift gears here for just a minute. Obviously, it was disappointing it does not have football this Saturday, as it were. There is some other stuff and exciting things happening with this football team off the field. I understand, obviously, it's been well spoken, but obviously something that we certainly want to address. Your team's had the opportunity to provide some, I guess you call it some service, or maybe even some life-saving aid to those that are in need, and you were kind of in the right place at the right time. Let's talk about the event that happened on Dixie Rock a few weeks ago, and then just last week you had another opportunity to quite literally save another student's life, as we had that kind of rainstorm here in St. George, and thunder and lightning and flash floods were kind of the forefront of that storm, and you had some of your players lift up a car to help a student that was kind of trapped under her car. Take us through those two events and kind of just how proud you are of your student athletes.
Yeah, good kids, man. So we go up to Dixie Rock every year. I show our student athletes what they represent, and it's got a great view of the university, and it's a pretty cool spot. A lot of those kids haven't been up there. When we were up there, there's just happened to be a repeller. Her hair was stuck, and she was kind of in a funny position, and she'd been there for a while. We didn't know how long until we asked at the end there, but very uncomfortable for her. We were just anybody would have done it. We just had a bunch of strong dudes that could pull her up in that rope, and in a way where it didn't pull her hair out, and it was good. We had one of our student athletes' fathers there, Officer Veach, and he kind of led the way, and we did what he said, and he's got some life-saving skills that we don't have, and we just were able to pull him up, and that got a lot of traction in the media, which was good attention for our university and for our program. And last week with the flood, this one's I feel like is amazing. Our kids that helped out were so humble. Caleb Hatch and Mo Tuileta had the opportunity to save a young lady that was underneath, pinned underneath the car for 4 or 5 minutes. When they got interviewed, they didn't explain exactly what had happened, but she was blue when she came up. She was unresponsive. I talked to Mo later that day, and he didn't know, because the firefighters were there right when they got her out, that she lived, that she was okay. So that was a relief to him. But just to jump out there to really not thinking about their own safety and really lifting that car up with help of their roommates too, and pulling her out, I think it's just phenomenal, and shows the type of character that these young men have. And I don't know, we're always looking for ways to serve, and we helped out at the Dixie Convention Center after the flood to get rid of some of the dirt that ended up down there, and we just want to give back. This community is important to us, and hopefully it's reciprocated, and when we can play some ball, we can get some people in the stands too, because we're good dudes.
No doubt about it, Coach. And let me be the first one to say, both Keric and I and everyone associated with this show has truly appreciated the players that we've been able to interview on this show, and just the respect and the way they represent themselves in the program has been nothing but phenomenal, and is a good reflection on you as a coach and your coaching staff, and just the way that you've been able to run that program in your short couple of seasons here as the head coach. Let's kind of move back a little bit, Coach, to the football. And obviously you mentioned a little bit ago about fall practices and kind of the lack thereof, I guess, of not really being able to do a whole lot, at least on the field right now. What is kind of the plan going forward? Obviously, we're anticipating a spring season, at least at some capacity, at some point in the future. How do you prepare? When can you start getting back on the field? What is going to go into being able to try to get things ready for a spring season?
Yeah, so like I said, we're on the field right now. We're allowed to have a football. We can do some walkthrough type stuff and some individual at full speed, which is good. And we got a lot of young guys, so that's good to develop them that way. We're really just waiting for the NCAA. I think in a couple, maybe a week or two, they'll let us know what we can have. Instead of a spring ball, probably a fall ball where we can pad it up, have 15 practices. That's what I'm assuming. That's what we're hoping for. And kind of the rumor mill amongst the coaches. We've called, I've called all my buddies wherever they're at, seeing what are you guys doing? What's going on? So that part's a little bit frustrating. Usually we're prepared a whole year in advance. We know what's going to happen, when we're going to go out recruiting, when our games are, when spring ball is. And so now the uncertainty is kind of a little frustrating for us. We don't know when we can practice, when that's going to happen, but we think the NCAA make a good decision for us to allow us to practice. And again, we'll still emphasize the weight room will still be in there 4 days a week and practice 3 days a week. When they let us do 15 practices, try to have a spring game or a fall game. Hopefully we can do that kids clinic that we did in the springtime to get some kids out here and coach them and teach them. I don't know how that would be with COVID right now, but we're trying to do those things as well.
He is head coach Paul Peterson, football head coach here at Dixie State University. Coach, you mentioned a little bit of the frustration just of the unknown and not knowing everything that's going to happen. Where would you rank this in terms of your most challenging years as not even just a head coach, but as a football coach in general? I imagine it's got to be up there just because of the unknowns, because of games being canceled or moved or postponed or however you want to phrase it. Where does it rank in terms of your most challenging years as a coach?
Oh, shoot, I don't know what you want to rank us. It's just kind of bob and weave. You got to adjust. It's sudden change, just like in a game. So how we respond, our kids are going to respond the same way. So if I'm all grumpy and angry and frustrated and blaming people and pointing fingers and it's their fault, what are we going to do? That doesn't work. So it's our mindset has been, hey, we bought some more time to get better. And every day we're going to do our very best, whatever time that they give us, whether it's a minute or an hour or a couple. And that's just our mindset we're on the rise. We're going like this and we can't stop. We don't have time to stop and think and blame and point fingers. So, it's a challenge, but again, it's sudden change in how we respond and we're responding very well, and we'll just keep rolling, doing what we're doing.
One thing, a lot of people are wondering, I've personally been wondering, as the head coach and as a Division I head coach, you've had these dead periods where, as far as I understand it, you can't have anybody on campus, you can't go visit anybody. How has this affected recruiting? I'm sure it tremendously. I'm sure it has. How has this affected recruiting, and what is this, pandemic and all these delays, and what does it do to recruiting long term for your program?
I feel bad for the high school kids. I think the uncertainty for them is really frustrating. We'll do whatever the NCAA allows us to do, and when we heal as a nation with this COVID. So, normally it's a year-long process. We get them in our camp in the summertime. There's no camps. We go watch them in person. Once they get to a certain point on our recruiting board, we can't go watch them. So really we're evaluating off of film, and a lot of teams are being really aggressive and throwing out a lot of scholarships. We're being patient. We don't know exactly how the scholarship situation is going to work out. We don't have very many seniors, and so we're probably not going to have very many scholarships depending on what they tell us we can do. So again, that uncertainty for them is a little bit frustrating. But we'll see what we can do to when they allow us to get out and just kind of hurry up with the time that we have remaining. I feel like they're going to have to make another signing day. If they don't have one in February, maybe there will be one in April or May. That will make the most sense for coaches to be able to get out and see these kids in school. You're not getting any eyeballs on them. You're doing stuff over social media or on Zoom if you can. And it's just hard to identify and target those kids off the film. That's how we evaluate. But we really want to get to know them a little bit better, too. And you do that on person and get them on campus.
Chatting with head coach Paul Peterson, entering his second season as head coach of the Dixie State Trailblazers. Coach, got about maybe 60 seconds. Obviously, we were all excited to be able to drive up I-15 about 45 minutes north this Saturday, September 5th, and play the first Division I football game against Cedar City, SUU, the Thunderbirds. And obviously, having the season shut down due to COVID is devastating enough. How much more so is it that was – that's taking place knowing that you're going into Division I and not going to have that chance, at least on September 5th, to play that game. How much more disappointing is it to have those two kind of combinations together?
That's okay. It's coming. That game is coming, and it's going to be a fun one. And there'll be a lot of people there. And when we get that chance to play them, we're going to play our guts out. And I'm sure they will too. And they're going to circle it on their calendar just like we have it circled when it's coming. And, again, it's something we can't control. But that excitement is just postponed a little bit. We'll bring it back.
He is head coach Paul Peterson of the Dixie State football program here for Trailblazer Athletics. Coach, appreciate you joining us for a few minutes. We got to run to a break, but we're looking forward to many more chats throughout the fall, and then, fingers crossed, hopefully a football season in the spring.
Love it, man. Thanks for having me on, man.
Appreciate it, Coach.